indoctrination.
Two chicks and a pod. Two chicks and a pod.
Yeah.
Two chicks and a pod. That was a good.
Yeah. Gang, gang.
Gang, gang.
Keeping it real.
Gang, gang. That's my best friend.
Is that my Bessie
That's my
and a
gang,
Tessie?
gang, gang.
Is that my Bessie and a Caddy?
Oh yeah, it is. She got one. And it's rose gold.
Rose gold, rose gold.
What's up, y'all? Hey,
What's up?
we should shout out Nevaeh's Noise and Rachel Geek because they have a new song called Beans. I mean, it's like a couple weeks old now, but fuck, is it a good song? I listen to it a lot. Nevaeh has such a lovely, cute voice, and Rachel just spits fire every day. I love her, so love her. And I just found out recently that Nevaeh is a twin. So follow Nevaeh's Noise and Rock and Roll Space Witch on Instagram. Thank you. Thank you for doing that.
Oh my God, thank you.
Oh my God, thank you.
Yeah.
So speaking of those two ladies, and I love following Rock and Roll Space Witch for this reason, but what are some of your favorite conspiracy theories? And which ones make you the most mad? And which ones trigger you into a spiral of rage?
Man, I don't know. The fact that it's just so many.
I know.
Yeah, like even the fact that like MK Ultra is still considered a conspiracy theory is mind-blowing when it's been declassified. Mm-hmm. The information is there.
Declassified. That means that's right. I just want to say for people who may not know what that means. Declassified means the government took their documents and made them public. So declassified means the government documents are now public information, meaning where's the conspiracy? It's a fact. And
it's one of those things like, you know, people were probably talking about it back then and it was, oh, that's a conspiracy theory. And then later on in life, it became declassified. So, I mean, when you're talking about conspiracy theories nowadays, like, who's to say in 10, 15, 20 years that it's not going to become declassified information?
Right. And
it's one of those things, like, obviously there's some, like, pretty heavy conspiracy theories, and you do have to take everything with a grain of salt, and you have to use your own discernment, and you have to critically think about it. But there's just certain conspiracy theories that once you start putting everything together and start noticing things, especially the signaling, the virtue signaling, once you know what to look for, it's in plain sight. It's in plain motherfucking sight. And that's almost with like any conspiracy theory that you kind of go down that has any, I don't know, some truth or some facts behind it. Once you learn about it, you start seeing it and everything starts making more sense.
Yeah, your eyes are like opened and you're like seeing it all from a totally different perspective.
And I don't know why people get so fucking defensive about conspiracy theories. You know, like, is it a bad thing to talk about these things? I don't think so. I think it's bad to potentially like try and spout out about information if you haven't verified anything about it. But like, why can't we have these open conversations? Why do people get so triggered by it? Is it because it doesn't follow the narrative that your government or your mainstream media feeds you?
I think it breaks their worldview, and that makes people feel unsafe. Like, people want to feel safe. And so if they believe that MK Ultra is real, their fucking whole world becomes unsafe because holy shit, who's trying to fucking brain control me?
Yeah, and let's just like touch on that MK Ultra a little bit. So back in the 1960s, they started experimenting with LSD to cure psychotic patients. So it actually, I read this documentary, or not documentary, I don't know what you want to call it. I read documentary or something you watch. I just went down a rabbit hole, and I landed on what do you call that when you read when you find something on the internet and you read like why am I drawing a blank? Frick. I was researching, and a nurse that had worked in a hospital. So I guess, okay, so I butchered that hard. Okay, so I went down a rabbit hole because I was looking into mental hospitals and institutions once the Saskatchewan hospital started getting tore down, and I found the one in Saskatchewan hospital was put up, and one in Weyburn was put up around the same time. So Weyburn is where they started really like experimenting with LSD, and initially what they started doing was the doctors and nurses were starting to take it so that they could try and understand people with schizophrenia, where they were coming from and what kind of like altered universe, and just to try and be more understanding of the disease. And so they really started experimenting with it, and then the Homeland Security got a hold of it and started experimenting with unknown patients that were unknown. They were putting LSD in their drinks and then watching them and seeing what they would do.
There's actually a Netflix series about this exact thing called Wormwood that you can look up if you're interested. It's one story of 100 million, but like, yeah, Wormwood on Netflix.
Yeah, and that one is initially about a scientist that put himself through a window while he was high on LSD. But yeah, experimenting on people unknowingly, like that's fucking nuts. So when people get really defensive about the government and say like, hey, the government wouldn't do that to us, 100% they would. The CIA... That's the word I was looking for. The CIA was experimenting on unknown or subjects unknowingly. And when I was kind of down that rabbit hole too, like they had implanted a chip in a dog so that they can control it to like stop, sit, turn, and stuff like that. So that's like another, like, you know, you can go down and down and down. But like now, you just read on the Canadian government website that they are turning dragonflies into little drones.
Yeah, dragonfly or horsefly drones and dragonfly like spy cams and stuff. Like the Canadian government website has posted that they're experimenting with biometrics, like putting chips into biological beings and making them half robotic. Like, our government is doing that with our tax money right now.
Well, and even like the chemtrails, you know, like that's even on the Canadian government website too. Yeah, so I don't know why people get so defensive about it when it's on the fucking website.
Like, I was in this group a long time ago where this one girl completely believed in chemtrails, and everybody in that group just called her a stupid, crazy lady all the time. And I was like, that is weird. Like, why are those planes leaving smoke? And then so I started looking up a lot. When I would see a plane, I would look up, and if there's a trail, I'd notice it, or if there wasn't, I'd notice it. And then, yeah, one day in my, awakening phase, I started looking into chemtrails. And sure enough, on the Government of Canada website, they have a whole section of weather modification. So what they do is they put all this chemical in a plane, and then they seed clouds. So they go up into the clouds and they release this chemical that makes the clouds bigger and wetter, and so that they'll rain and stuff like that. And yeah, it's fucking crazy. Like, if you didn't realize that the government was making it rain, it's like it is. And like, is it a good thing? Because would we have had like a huge drought like the Dirty 30s? Who knows? We'll never know, because we've been fucking with nature for so long.
Well, yeah, and we're going kind of into a drought right now here around the Lloydminster area. Like, we've hardly seen any rain this summer, and it's been so hot. And so is it because they screwed around with these chemtrails and now like the natural cycle is broken and it can't do the proper cycling? Or I don't know. And people have been talking like about this for like, I remember like being a kid and people talking about this, that, you know, Canada was essentially going to become a banana boat, which meaning like we're going to turn into like a Mexico. Like it's going to do like a change where Mexico's going to start cooling down and Canada's going to become Mexico and hotter and warmer. And honestly, like, I don't know, people kind of argued when I said that even last winter was a lot more mild. We had like a week or two of really cold weather, but other than that, it was warm, like unusually warm. It was a warm winter. Yeah, and so I don't understand why people like, but you know, people, they get that 1 or 2 weeks of cold weather and that's all they remember, it seems like, because yeah, it is miserable when it's like that. But yeah, like it was very mild up until we had that couple of weeks, and then it was mild again. We had an early spring, hardly any rain again.
Yeah, like who knows what they're fucking doing with the weather?
No, who knows?
And like, so another thing though that I learned is in Calgary, they were seeding clouds above Calgary a lot to make the hail smaller, because like we used to get golf ball hail quite often, like pretty regularly back in like the 80s and 90s, and so they figured out how to seed clouds to make the hail smaller. But again, like those chemicals they're putting in the air, it doesn't just fucking stay in the air forever. It comes down to the earth. Like after one of the big storms we had last year, one of the snowstorms, a bunch of farmers around in Saskatchewan were saying that a bunch of their bulls were sterile. And like, was it the cold? Because I've heard that you said that like if it gets really cold, it can freeze their balls and shit like that. But like, it's so hard to know whatever is happening because there's so many fucking things going on that we don't know about.
Yeah.
Like well, let's talk about Project Mockingbird. So Project Mockingbird is if you know what a mockingbird is, like they just repeat, right? So the media is Project Mockingbird, like CNN, CBC, CTV, our news stations, American news stations, and at least one news station around the world in every country participates in Project Mockingbird, where they essentially just parrot each other's talking points. They make sure the narrative is on the straight and narrow. They depict what you're going to feel. You know, for example,
well, there's like that clip. Did you see that clip that they all put together where it was a bunch of different stations all saying the exact same thing and the exact same narrative?
This is a threat to our democracy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And like, and it was a lot of different news stations. Like it wasn't just like a few, like it was like tiny little squares, and they were all saying the exact same thing.
Like, they all have a script.
Isn't that odd?
They have, like, you think that the news is news? No, it's
in journalism. It's a script and it's a narrative.
It's basically fucking a movie that gets scripted and produced. Like at CNN, they have the red phone, and if you want to look more into Project Mockingbird, you should look up Project Veritas, because Veritas is exposing the fuck out of Project Mockingbird right now. He's suing the New York Times, CNN, like it's fucking amazing. Like, yes, James O'Keefe from Project Veritas, like, I love you. Like, fucking strongest man in the world right now, as far as I'm concerned. Like, that dude is hustling. Also, the term conspiracy theory was invented by the CIA to make it sound like people are stupid and kind of just put a negative spin on the fact that people were saying JFK was assassinated by the CIA.
Like I feel like it's like to put a spin on it to
it's to make people, it's to discredit it.
Yeah.
So what's some other ones that you know?
Well, there's the Twin Towers and
9/11.
And then how it was at the CIA or the FBI building that just collapsed, which
the Pentagon or something. Yeah, a building. Yeah.
But then when you like building, look into it and like how it just collapsed after some time, like when the whole Twin Towers didn't even, like, don't you think, like, because the Twin Towers collapsed, but like don't you think it would have like crumbled all the way to the ground if the heat was that much?
There's a lot of suspect stuff about 9/11. So like
that's how I got down the MK Ultra wormhole too. And it was like, okay, what information was in that building that they were worried that was going to come out?
Well, even the Titanic. Do you know the Titanic conspiracy? Yeah, that one was crazy. So like there's the federal bank, right? The Federal Reserve. And then there was like 3 or 4 men that wanted to like stop the Federal Reserve and like kind of like break up banking so that like all these elite people didn't control all the world's money. And those men mysteriously accidentally died on the Titanic, and all these men who were supposed to be on the Titanic had gotten off it right before. And like, oh man, that's a crazy one.
Another thing to like look into too, if you want to put all 100% of your faith into a government, is look into Iraq. At one point, Iraq was super prosperous. They were thriving. Everybody was doing well in that country. And then the government came in and said no more.
Same thing in Venezuela. Venezuela used to be a thriving country, and now it's a third world country. It's complete socialism. Like, and it didn't take long either. It only took a couple years. So if you think you're a safe Canadian because we're living in a beautiful country and we have all this freedom, just know that within weeks you could be a socialist slave.
Well, this whole past year really just proved how much control they have over everyone. And it's sad. It's sad, the division that it's caused. If you choose to trust in your immune system, you're a terrible person and you don't care about anyone, you're selfish. But yeah, we won't even.
Yeah,
I mean, and that's not even a conspiracy theory. And the fact that the United States has transparency on their vaccine injuries, but Canada doesn't. So, I mean, if you really wanted to do research, like, you can't really compare. You don't have anything to compare it to, unless you just want to follow the studies. But who's funding those studies?
Yeah,
the people that want you to take the fucking vaccine.
Yeah. There's over 9,000 deaths listed now on VAERS, I saw this morning.
And it's one of those things too, like, they've admitted that they inflated the COVID numbers, but I can guarantee you that the vaccine reactions or injuries will not be inflated. And if anything, they will be deflated because they want everybody to take it. So they're not going to make it public knowledge, and they're not going to spread, these awful things happening to children and their inflamed hearts, which, it's like they call it it minor, but once you have a heart issue, you have a heart issue forever.
And your heart is your fucking lifeblood. Like,
yeah. So I feel like if all these like heart attacks, people having heart attacks and stuff, is just going to be classified as a heart attack. It's not going to be classified as a vaccine injury, or a vaccine death. So there's going to be a difference there too.
And people are fucking really just fooling themselves if they are gonna think, oh yeah, heart attacks are on the rise because no relation to the vaccine. You know what I mean? Like, when kids under 18 are having heart attacks, which someone in Lloyd did, I read on Facebook, like, that's not normal. Like, but it's like people need to have faith in it because they have gotten it. So they have to believe that it's good, because if they don't, then they have to admit to themselves that they were wrong. And that's like the hardest thing for some people, is just to admit they're wrong.
I honestly, like, my view on it, honestly, I really personally wish everybody would just stop talking about it, and everybody just make their choice and not have to validate it to anyone, just stop making it the point of a discussion anymore. Just quit asking people, are you vaccinated, are you not vaccinated? Or just people like, oh, do you want me to wear a mask or not wear a mask? Well, I'm completely vaccinated, so it doesn't matter. Well, no, you can still be a carrier of it, actually, technically. So it's just stop talking about it. Stop cramming it down other people's throats. Quit guilting people into getting the vaccine.
Your body, your choice. My body, my choice. Let's all just fucking have a good time.
And we all have this, like, our medical should be our personal property, but yet we're all just disclosing it to each other. Let's just stop. Like, just stop.
Yep, I agree. And so that's our fun conspiracy theories. If you have any that you've learned, please let us know. What others can you think of just off the top of your head real quick? Operation Fishbowl, you can look at that one. There's a lot. There's a million.
But really, I think, like, one of the big ones is MK Ultra.
Yeah.
Start looking into that one.
Once you know MK Ultra, you know what's wrong with the world.
Yeah.
Okay, bye.